The first thing I noticed missing wasn't her love, it was her hesitation. She used to hesitate before saying cruel things. There'd be a pause, a glance, a flicker of guilt that crossed her face like a brief summer cloud. But that morning? Nothing. She didn't flinch. "You don't excite me," she said, buttering toast like she was reading a weather forecast. "I don't even feel like kissing you anymore." Just like that. As if I were some old sweater she'd forgotten she left in the dryer too long. I didn't answer. I think I blinked twice. Maybe 3 times. I remember wondering if I'd imagined it. But then she took a sip of her coffee, the almond creamer I bought because she once said she liked it, and walked away. No follow-up. No explanation. I stood there holding her phone charger. I just untangled it from the vacuum cleaner cord. I was going to plug it in for her before I left for work. I wish I could say I was shocked. But really, I think I was just quiet. My body was still doing husband things, fixing stuff, paying bills, organizing laundry into the right baskets, while my brain stood outside my own skull screaming, "Did she really just say that?" I didn't tell her I heard. Not at first. I did what I always do, I internalized it. I let it chew on my insides for 2 full days while I smiled through meetings, ordered her favorite sushi, and watched her text someone named Ray with a smirk on her face she didn't try to hide anymore. And then I opened my banking app. It was 11:42 p.m. The air conditioner had just clicked off. She was asleep or pretending to be, curled away from me like I was contagious. I stared at the screen and scrolled through months of spending. Spa packages. A $300 vision board coaching session. Subscription boxes with names like Orakind and Moonjuice. All of it paid by me. The man she couldn't even bring herself to kiss. So I stopped. I didn't slam doors. I didn't give speeches. I didn't cancel everything at once. No, I wanted her to feel it. The slow erosion. The invisible plug being pulled. First, I let her gym membership expire. Then the card linked to her food delivery apps mysteriously declined. I deleted the shared Amazon auto orders and redirected the housekeeper's payments back to my personal card. And I waited. The silence in the house grew loud. She asked once, lightly, if the card company had messed something up. I shrugged. She didn't push. But 3 days later, I heard her crying in the bathroom. Not sobbing. Panicked. She was on the phone whispering about overdrafts and what the hell happened, and no, I can't ask him, he's been weird lately. Weird? I was done. That's what I was. And the best part? She still hadn't kissed me. She could barely look at me. And yet, she still wore my house, my name, and my wallet like they were hers by right. But what came next, the way she tried to take control back, that's what blew the lid off everything. And I'll get to that in part 2. Because the woman who said I wasn't exciting? She had secrets. And I found them. One payment at a time. I kept telling myself I needed a reason, a smoking gun, a confession, a message left open on her laptop, but the truth is, I already had what I needed. You don't need to find a broken window to know a thief's been in your home. You just notice the air is wrong. You notice the silence when you walk in. You feel it in the way she says your name like it's a task. Still, I couldn't help myself. I wanted confirmation, and part of me wanted to know what she would do when she realized I wasn't going to play her little game anymore. So I started paying attention. Closely. Mira had always been private with her phone. In the beginning, I thought that was healthy. We're adults, we deserve privacy, right? But somewhere along the way, it shifted. She didn't just keep her phone close, she guarded it like it held nuclear codes. Even in the shower, it was on the sink, screen down, volume off. And I was too spineless, or maybe too trusting, to question it. But not anymore. One evening, while she was in the backyard sipping wine and pretending to read a book she'd bought for the aesthetic, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I don't know what possessed me, but I walked over, flipped it, and saw a message that froze me. "Miss you already. He still thinks you're at yoga." I stared at it for a full minute before the screen darkened. I didn't unlock it. I didn't need to. The sender's name was saved as therapist. The irony nearly made me laugh out loud. I wish I could say I confronted her that night. But I didn't. I went upstairs. I brushed my teeth with the off-brand paste I hated. I crawled into bed beside her, heart pounding, while she absent-mindedly scrolled through interior design photos on Pinterest like we were just another boring couple planning a kitchen remodel. Her world was fake, a carefully curated fantasy, but I was the fool funding it. So I doubled down. I canceled the automatic payment on her car lease. I let her salon appointment vanish into the void. I called our bank and set spending limits on the shared account so tight she wouldn't be able to buy a sandwich without texting me first. She didn't notice right away, but within 48 hours, she started unraveling. She came into my office on a Tuesday, a day she usually ignored my existence, holding her laptop like it was a dying animal. "Did you change the PayPal password?" she asked, voice thin with performative confusion. I kept my face blank. "Nope, probably a glitch." She stared at me for too long. I could see it click behind her eyes. She didn't say anything, just turned and walked out, slowly, like her body didn't trust the floor anymore. The next morning, she made breakfast. That was the first real shock. Mira hadn't cooked for me in over a year. She claimed the smell of frying eggs made her nauseous. But that morning, she made scrambled eggs, toast, and even placed a single piece of orange on the side like she used to back when she still cared if I smiled. I sat down at the table, confused, and she slid the plate in front of me like she was in a movie about forgiveness. "I thought we should talk," she said. I nodded and picked up my fork, but before I could even taste the food, she leaned forward and said, "Is this about something I said or didn't say? You've been distant." I nearly choked on the irony. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her. For the first time in weeks, I really looked at her. Not through the lens of affection or nostalgia or the need to fix things, but like she was a stranger who had wandered into my home and forgotten to leave. "No," I finally said. "It's not about what you said. It's about what you don't feel." She blinked. That's all. No denial. No apology. She knew. I could see it now. She'd known for a long time that the affection was gone. But she thought the performance was enough. She thought I would keep showing up, paying bills, replacing light bulbs, nodding through her shallow explanations and mysterious absences because I was too soft to do anything else. And maybe I was, for a while. But the man sitting at that table, eating lukewarm eggs, wasn't the same man she'd been ignoring for months. That man had started listening, not to her words, but to his own silence, his own needs, his own dignity. And the storm was just beginning. What she did next, it wasn't desperate. It was calculated. And it was far worse than I could have ever imagined. I'll tell you in part 3, because this was never just about kisses or money or silence. This was a battle for control, and I had finally stopped surrendering. It started with a package. 3 days after our breakfast charade, a sleek black envelope appeared on our doorstep. Mira brought it in with a strange calmness, like she'd been expecting it. I watched her open it from across the room, pretending to scroll my emails while secretly observing her every move. Inside was a letter, thick, cream-colored paper, the kind rich people use for wedding invitations or legal threats. She read it once, folded it slowly, and smiled. Not at me, not even to herself. It was the kind of smile people wear when they know they've won something you don't know you're losing yet. That was the moment I realized Mira wasn't panicking over the financial shutdown. She was maneuvering, waiting, and whatever her next move was, it was already in motion. That night, I checked our shared cloud storage. I hadn't looked in months, but something in me said I needed to. What I found made my blood run cold. There were 2 files recently added under her name, both labeled innocuously as workshop notes. But when I opened the first one, it wasn't a document at all. It was a video. I hesitated, heart pounding, then hit play. The screen flickered and there she was, sitting in our guest room, the one we never used, wearing a burgundy blouse I'd never seen before. The camera was propped up carefully and her voice was calm, almost rehearsed. "If you're seeing this," she began, "then you probably already believe I've done something to deserve it. But I want to explain what he's really like when no one's watching." I froze. She wasn't just documenting her side of things, she was pre-building a narrative. A defense. A performance. I skipped ahead. In the video, she described me as emotionally unstable, paranoid, and controlling with money. My stomach twisted. There was even a line where she said he's starting to cut off my finances as punishment. She made it sound like I was some jealous monster hoarding resources to trap her. I couldn't believe what I was watching. This wasn't the woman who used to text me, "I miss your face," when I was working late. This was someone strategic, almost surgical. Like she'd been planning her exit for months and wanted to make sure she looked like the victim when she finally walked. I didn't confront her that night. Not because I was scared though, to be honest, part of me was, but because I needed to know what else she was hiding. I began checking the browser history on our shared devices. She cleared most of it, of course, but one tab had been left open on her old tablet, a web page comparing the best divorce attorneys in our city. 5 different tabs, all bookmarked. That's when something inside me cracked. Not out of anger. Not even out of heartbreak. It was like watching the final block get pulled from a tower you built with shaking hands. And as it all collapsed, I realized what had to be done. The next morning, I called my credit union and froze all joint accounts. I opened a new checking account under my name only. I removed her name from the home insurance. And then I did something I never thought I'd have the guts to do. I emailed our mortgage provider and had the monthly notices redirected solely to me. I wasn't going to kick her out. Not yet. But I was done letting her operate in the shadows of my income. By evening, I was lightheaded. Like I'd been holding my breath for a year and had finally exhaled. She noticed the shift immediately. That night, she poured herself a glass of wine, sat down across from me, and asked, "Is there something you want to tell me?" I could have laughed. But I didn't. I just stared at her, hollow-eyed, and replied, "Probably the same thing you're not telling me." She blinked. Once. Twice. Then she smiled, not the warm kind. The dangerous kind. The kind that says, "You're not the only one who knows how to play this game." "I think we need space," she said calmly. "A break. Just to clear our heads." I nodded. Sounds fair. She didn't expect me to agree. But that's the thing about people who orchestrate betrayals, they never expect their target to beat them to the next move. And what I was about to do next? It wasn't revenge. It was revelation. Because I just found out who Ray really was. And it wasn't short for Rachel. It was a man. And he wasn't a stranger. He used to call me brother. There's a type of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like the house is holding its breath. That's what I lived in for the next 3 days after she suggested a break. We still slept under the same roof, shared the same space, walked past each other in the hallway, but we weren't husband and wife anymore. We were chess players circling the final few pieces, waiting for the checkmate that neither of us wanted to say aloud. Every time I looked at her, I saw the video she'd made. Every time she looked at me, I wondered if she knew I had already discovered everything. I hadn't told her about what I found on the tablet. I didn't say a word about the divorce attorney searches. I didn't let on that I knew who Ray really was. But I had quietly pulled every thread, and by the end of the week, the whole knot had unraveled. His name was Rayburn, and he wasn't just some guy from yoga or the artsy book club she pretended to attend. He was my cousin. We'd grown up playing in my grandmother's backyard every 4th of July, sneaking sodas when no one was looking, sharing secrets that only childhood friends could understand. And now he was sleeping with my wife. I only confirmed it after a stroke of what I can only call divine cruelty. My aunt had tagged both of us in an old photo on social media. It was us as kids, grinning like idiots in matching superhero capes. And Mira, the woman who hadn't kissed me in months, commented on the post. A heart emoji. That's it. Innocent to most people. But when I clicked her profile, I saw that she had recently updated her close friends list. She never knew I had a second account. An old one I used for work before I went private. And when I looked from that account, I saw the photos. Private story. Locked post. But visible to anyone she deemed close enough. There she was, curled up beside Rayburn in what looked like a boutique cabin, wearing a sweater I bought her 2 Christmases ago. A fireplace in the background. 2 wine glasses. Her head on his shoulder. And in the caption, "Safe spaces and stolen weekends." That caption shattered me more than the image. Stolen weekends. That's what I was funding. All those mysterious out-of-town solo getaways, for clarity and writing time. They weren't for self-discovery. They were for adultery. And I was footing the bill like a clown in a suit. But what's worse? He knew. He had to. There's no universe in which Rayburn didn't know I was her husband. We weren't just cousins. We were family. He'd been in my wedding photos. He gave a toast at our reception. And now he was the ghost texting my wife while I watered her plants and ironed her linens. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the garage with the lights off and just stared at the steering wheel of my car for over an hour. I was a man unraveling. A man who didn't even have the strength to scream. But something changed in me that night. Something important. I realized I wasn't going to give her the reaction she was waiting for. No explosive fight. No tears. No pathetic begging. I was done being the weepy husband she painted in that fake little video. If she wanted freedom, she was about to get it. Just not on her terms. The next morning, I told her I was heading out of town for a work retreat. I even packed a bag. She looked vaguely amused, maybe even relieved. I smiled back. Take some time, I said. You deserve it. She nodded, pretending to care. You too. Then I left. But I didn't go far. I parked down the street and waited. Took 5 hours. At 4:17 p.m., a sleek gray car pulled up. Rayburn got out, wearing a smug leather jacket like he was starring in a bad soap opera. He didn't even knock. She opened the door before he got there, like she'd been waiting by it, like they'd rehearsed this. That's when I hit record. Everything. The door opening. The hug. The kiss. Her laughter. Him walking in like he owned the place I paid for. I didn't stop recording until the door shut and the lights went dim behind the blinds. I sat in my car with the camera still rolling on my lap, knowing I had what I needed. But even then, I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt grief, not just for the betrayal, but for how small I had allowed myself to become. A man hiding in his own neighborhood while his wife entertained his family under his roof. But I wasn't hiding anymore. Not after what I did next. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. The hardest part wasn't watching them walk into my home together. It wasn't the kiss, or the way she grinned like a schoolgirl sneaking out with the captain of the football team. No, the hardest part was realizing that I had stopped expecting better from her. Somewhere along the way, I had come to accept that Mira, my wife, was no longer someone I could trust, love, or even recognize. She had become a stranger who dressed like someone I used to know and slept beside me like I didn't exist. But that moment in the car, camera still warm in my hand, changed everything. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my friend Calvin's apartment. A guy I hadn't seen in nearly a year, but who let me crash without questions, and stared at the footage again and again like it was some kind of proof I needed to relive just to stay angry. But anger wasn't what I felt anymore. I felt purpose. I felt stillness. There's a moment before a storm when the air gets unnaturally quiet, and you know something's about to break. I was that stillness, and she had no idea. By morning, I had already put the plan in motion. No confrontation, no shouting match, no teary-eyed, "Why would you do this to me?" monologue. That's what people like Mira expect. A dramatic scene they can spin into victimhood. She was probably already rehearsing what she'd say to her friends. He lost it, she'd whisper dramatically he couldn't handle me taking space. No, she wasn't going to get that script. She was going to get the truth cold and undeniable. I started by gathering every document with my name on it. Bank accounts, car titles, mortgage records, insurance files. I scanned them, saved them to a locked drive, and removed every access point she had. Then I went through the footage one last time and clipped exactly 30 seconds, not graphic, nothing that crossed any boundaries, just enough to show the embrace, the kiss, and the fact that Rayburn entered our home without knocking. It didn't need to be scandalous. It needed to be clear. At noon, I sent the clip privately to 5 people. Her mother, her sister, my Aunt Rayburn's mother, her best friend Naomi, and my lawyer. No commentary, no explanations. Just the video, timestamped with the caption. This is what's been happening in the house I pay for. I knew it would detonate within minutes. I was wrong. It detonated within seconds. Her sister called first. She didn't say hello. She just said, "Linwood, is this real?" I said yes. She said nothing for a moment. Then, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." 5 minutes later, Naomi texted me. I had suspicions. I didn't think it was him. "Are you okay?" I wasn't. But I wasn't broken either. I was wide awake for the first time in years. And then my phone rang again. It was my aunt. Her voice was shaking. "Lynn, please tell me this is some horrible joke. Tell me this isn't him." I didn't reply. "I'm coming over," she said, and hung up. I didn't stop her. I didn't stop anyone. I wanted them to see it for themselves. I wanted them to understand that I wasn't crazy, I wasn't paranoid, I wasn't emotionally unstable like Mira had painted me in her little video diary. I was a man who trusted too long, stayed too quiet, and paid too much financially, emotionally, spiritually for someone who had long since left the marriage in every way that mattered. What I didn't expect was the fallout on Myra's side. By 6 p.m. she had received at least 3 phone calls that I know of. I heard her through the wall of Calvin's apartment. She didn't know I was nearby, yelling into her phone with panic in her voice. "That's not what it looks like," she screamed. He's editing things, twisting them. You don't understand the full story. But that's the thing. Everyone did understand. They saw the ease, the routine, the way she welcomed Rayburn like it wasn't the first time or even the fifth. There was no tension in her body, no hesitation in her eyes. She wasn't being coerced or confused. She was being comfortable. Comfortable in betrayal. Around 9 p.m. I got a text from an unknown number. Just one line. "You're a coward." No name, no context. But I knew it was him. Rayburn. The irony wasn't lost on me. I wanted to reply, "Cowards don't record truth. They sneak through side doors and borrow wives like jackets." But I didn't respond. He didn't deserve even that much. Instead, I opened the folder Mira had titled Life Goals on our old shared drive. Inside were quotes she used to live by. Phrases like "live honestly" and "choose peace." I copied one and sent it back to her. Just 4 words. "Peace begins with honesty." She didn't reply. But her world, her carefully filtered version of reality, was already crumbling. And in part 6, I make sure she has to face the one person she truly fears disappointing. Her father. The man who once warned me, if she ever starts lying, don't let her turn it into your fault. I should have listened then. But now he's about to listen to me. I always thought Myra's father hated me. From the very beginning, he was cold in a way that didn't feel unkind, just surgical. Like he was evaluating me, measuring my worth against some invisible standard I didn't understand. He was the kind of man who believed in hard work, strong handshakes, and consequences. A retired Marine with a voice like gravel and eyes that looked straight through you. He didn't say much at our wedding. He never hugged me on holidays. He didn't meddle, but he never really welcomed me either. Still, I respected him. Even feared him in the way any man fears the version of themselves they'll never live up to. So when my phone rang the morning after the family fallout and his name flashed across the screen, my stomach turned into concrete. I didn't answer at first. I just stared at the screen as it buzzed in my hand, unsure if I was ready for what he was going to say. Would he defend her? Would he accuse me of blowing things out of proportion? Or worse, would he already know everything, having helped her spin the story in her favor? But something told me to answer. So I did. "Linwood," he said flatly. "Is it true?" No preamble. No greeting. Just those 3 words, and they carried more weight than any paragraph she'd ever spoken. I told him yes. I didn't elaborate. There was a long pause, then the sound of him exhaling hard through his nose. I could almost picture him sitting in his old leather chair, running a palm down his face, processing disappointment like a silent battlefield. "Can you come here?" he asked. Again, no emotion. No yelling. Just that same low, calm, lethal tone that made you feel like lying wasn't just wrong, it was suicidal. I drove to his house 30 minutes later. Mira wasn't there. When he opened the door, he didn't shake my hand. He just nodded and led me to the back porch where he poured 2 cups of black coffee and sat down across from me. No small talk. No attempt to soften the blow. "I watched the clip," he said. I nodded. And I saw the timestamp. Another nod. He didn't blink. "So while you were out working, my daughter was bringing your cousin into your house. Into your bed, possibly?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. He took a long sip of coffee. She always had a weakness for performance. Always wanted to control the narrative. He paused. "She told me years ago that if she ever made a mistake in marriage, she'd make sure it looked like the other person's fault." That stuck with me. At the time, I thought it was teenage drama. But now, his voice trailed off. And then he said something I never expected. "I'm ashamed." I didn't know how to respond to that. He stared into his cup like it had answers. "You were good to her. Too good, maybe. Made her soft. Made her think actions had no consequences." He looked up at me again. "She lied to you. Then she lied to all of us. And now she's scrambling because the truth beat her to the punch." I felt something crack in my chest, not grief, but a kind of release. Then he asked, "What do you want to do next?" It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a test. It was a real question. And for the first time since this entire nightmare began, someone wasn't telling me how to feel, or what to forgive, or how to be the bigger man. He was asking what I wanted. And I told him. I said, I want her to own it. Not to me. I'm done. But I want her to stop rewriting it for everyone else. No more rehearsed stories. No more playing the victim. Just once, I want her to stand in front of the people who trusted her and say it out loud. He nodded slowly. "You'll get that." I didn't ask how. 2 hours later, Mira called me. Her voice was a strained attempt at control, like she was trying to speak through a smile that didn't quite reach her teeth. "I think we should talk," she said. I told her I agreed. She invited me back to the house. Said she'd be alone. Said she wanted to clear the air and acknowledge where things had gone wrong. I almost laughed at her wording. Where things had gone wrong. As if it was a weather pattern or an unexpected power outage, not a string of deliberate choices that led to the destruction of something sacred. I walked into that house with my phone recording in my pocket. Not for revenge. Not for social media. Just so I wouldn't gaslight myself later when she inevitably tried to twist everything into something else. The conversation was calm at first. Apologetic in tone, vague in content. She used every soft phrase in the handbook: emotionally distant, confused, needing connection. I let her speak. I let her build her little raft of excuses. Then I asked her one question. Did you ever plan to tell the truth, Mira? Or were you just going to wait until I couldn't afford your silence anymore? She froze. Like a child caught mid-lie, lips parted, pupils contracting. I was going to explain eventually. Eventually. That word broke me in half. Eventually, after the divorce? Eventually, when the house was split and the accounts drained. Eventually, when she could say it on her terms, in her timing, with just the right amount of crocodile tears to soften the blow. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I stood up, walked to the hallway closet, and pulled out a small locked box she'd forgotten even existed. Inside was everything I had quietly collected: receipts, emails, copies of her messages she thought had been deleted. I placed it on the coffee table between us and said, I'm not threatening you. I'm reminding you, the truth isn't going away. She looked down at the box like it was ticking. And then, for the first time since this began, she cried. But not because she missed me. Because she realized she'd lost control. And in part 7, she does the one thing I never expected: not an apology, not a confession. She goes public. And not in the way you'd think. The next morning, Mira posted something on her personal social media account that made my chest cave in. Not because it hurt, I had stopped expecting decency, but because of how calculated and grotesque it was. A photo. Just one. Her, sitting on the edge of our living room couch, the same place I once kissed her forehead after she cried watching a sad commercial. She was wrapped in a chunky sweater, hair messily tied up like she wanted to appear unguarded, and her eyes slightly puffy like she'd practiced crying in the mirror and stopped just short of overdoing it. The caption read, "Sometimes people break you quietly, not with fists, but with silence, withdrawal, and power games. I've been surviving for years. Now I'm choosing peace." I read it 3 times. My jaw clenched so hard it ached. She was painting herself as the wounded soul. Me as the manipulator. She wasn't just rewriting history anymore, she was framing it with golden light and setting it in a gallery of pity for everyone to applaud. And it worked. Within an hour, comments flooded in. "You're so strong. You deserve happiness. Proud of you for speaking your truth." Speaking her truth. Her truth. A version of events so sanitized and warped it barely resembled the last decade of our marriage. I sat there, gripping my phone, watching this digital illusion spiral into something dangerous. People believed her. People were sharing it. People were messaging me, mutual acquaintances, distant relatives, asking if I was okay, but in that tone. That tone. The one that says, "Did you really do all that to her?" And that's when I knew this wasn't just about the affair anymore. This was about reputation. Legacy. She was trying to burn down everything we built and crawl out of the ashes wearing a halo. I didn't respond online. I didn't post my version. That's what she wanted, a fight she could manipulate. She wanted screenshots, rage, missteps. Something to twist into a cautionary tale about toxic men who can't handle strong women. Instead, I did something else. I called Naomi. Her best friend. The one she used to confide in after every petty fight, the one who knew where Mira kept her second phone when she traveled, the one who always gave me a weird look when I asked how Mira was doing during those solo retreats. Naomi didn't answer at first. I left a message short, calm. "Naomi, I think you know what's real. If you're ready to stop pretending, I'd appreciate 5 minutes of truth." She called back 20 minutes later. "Linwood," she said, her voice heavy, "I didn't know she'd take it that far. I thought you were just going to walk away." I didn't say anything. I let the silence press on her until she filled it. She showed me that post before she uploaded it. Asked me if it was too dramatic. I told her no because I was scared to say yes. I could hear her breathing hard. Regret, maybe? Or guilt? She said people would believe her. That no one would look into the details. That you wouldn't respond. She called it a reset. A reset. As if lives were light switches. I asked Naomi carefully, "Do you have proof? Messages? Anything that shows she planned this?" She hesitated. "I have texts. I saved them because I didn't trust her anymore. She's been different the last year. Cunning. That word hit hard. But it fit. I'll send them, she said finally. Just promise you'll use them wisely. And she did. Screenshots. Chats where Mira bragged about flipping the script, where she called me emotionally boring, where she described Rayburn as the upgrade. My stomach turned, but I also felt a grim sense of closure. This was no accident. No heat-of-the-moment mistake. This was premeditated. A narrative crafted like a novel, complete with a villain and a phoenix-rising heroine. She'd weaponized her social circle, her charm, even her sadness. She'd turned betrayal into branding. But the truth, the unvarnished, boring, uncomfortable truth, was now in my hands. And I didn't need to scream it. I just had to place it in front of the right eyes. That evening, I printed Naomi's texts, added them to the folder with Myra's video, the time-stamped footage, the receipts, and a brief personal letter. I sealed it all in an envelope and hand-delivered it to the office of Myra's father. He was waiting for it. He didn't ask questions. All he said was, "I'll handle it." What happened next wasn't a scandal. It wasn't loud. It was a collapse. People stopped responding to Myra's post. Comments slowed. A few quietly disappeared. Her sister removed her share of it. Her mother untagged her. By midnight, she had taken the post down. And the next morning, I got an email. Not a text. An email. It read, "You've made your point. Now what do you want from me?" But what she didn't understand, what she never understood, was that I didn't want anything from her anymore. I just wanted to be free of her. And in part 8, that's exactly what I become. Not with drama, but with the one final move she never anticipated. Her email sat there for hours. "You've made your point. Now what do you want from me?" I read it once, then again, and finally closed the screen like I was sealing a chapter of a book I never asked to read. For a while, I didn't reply, not because I didn't have an answer, but because she'd asked the wrong question. Mira still thought everything was a transaction, that I'd exposed the truth because I wanted something. Revenge, control, compensation, maybe even an apology. But I didn't want her guilt. I didn't need her admission. I just wanted to stop carrying the weight of someone else's lies on my back. When I finally responded, it was one sentence. "I want nothing from you. I want everything that's mine back." And I meant it. I contacted my attorney that afternoon. We filed the necessary paperwork to legally separate every shared asset. The house? I put it up for sale. I didn't want a home soaked in secrets. The car? It was in my name. She could figure out her own ride. I transferred the rest of our remaining joint funds into escrow until the divorce finalized, just as my lawyer advised. I was calm, professional. I treated the whole process like a polite business transaction, because that's all it was now. Mira didn't fight it. She didn't have the leverage anymore. And the day she moved out, the real ending was quiet. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She left behind a few empty hangers, a yoga mat, and a handwritten note that simply said, "Sorry it ended like this." But she never signed her name. I didn't need her to. I walked back into my house, barefoot on the hardwood floors, and stood in the now empty living room, surrounded by nothing but silence. The same silence that once suffocated me now felt like clean air, peaceful, honest. That night, I took out the cheap takeout I'd picked up from the diner near the office, poured myself a glass of water, and ate alone. No accusations, no secrets, just food and quiet and the satisfaction of knowing I didn't burn the bridge. I simply let her cross it first. The following weeks brought a strange kind of rebirth. I donated half the furniture, repainted the kitchen. I even signed up for a woodworking class, something I always said I'd do when life calms down. Well, life had finally shut up long enough to let me hear myself again. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years reached out, not because of drama, but because they heard I'd gone through something and wanted to check in. My cousin, a real one, not the traitor, invited me on a hiking trip. I said yes. First yes I'd given to anything in months. But the best moment? It wasn't big. It wasn't dramatic. It happened on a random Tuesday at 9:12 p.m. I laughed. A real, involuntary, chest-shaking laugh at a stupid meme someone sent me. The kind of laugh that takes you by surprise. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I realized I wasn't numb anymore. Mira had taken a lot from me. Time, energy, trust. But she didn't take my ability to start over. She didn't take my capacity to breathe in the world without her in it. And no matter how carefully she tried to shape her version of the story, mine had already outgrown it. Because the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to stand still long enough for the dust to settle. I don't know where she is now. I don't need to. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. I'm just free. And sometimes that's the happiest ending you can ask for.